Number 10. There are substances on set. Actors using substances on set is nothing new. A lot of people are pretty sure that Seth Rogen smokes his herbs and spices on set constantly, something he's admitted to doing before, but not as often as the internet makes it out to be. However, in the earlier days of Hollywood, substances were not only done on set, they were encouraged by the studios, who would regularly feed their actors their narcotic of choice on set. In fact, John Belushi from the Blues Brothers was such an avid consumer of no-no snow that the price of powder was built into the budget for the 1980 flick. No wonder he's in sunglasses all day. If he took them off, he'd look like he just got pepper sprayed or something. I don't know what happens when you do that stuff. I'm a good boy, I promise. Facts are that this still takes place to this day. Now, I have signed a few NDAs in my time as a locations PA, so I cannot specify who does what and where, but the amount of celebrities that surprisingly love that no-no snow is astonishing. No wonder so many people deliver great performances. It's because they amp themselves up in a bathroom for 5 minutes before every scene. Number 9. Jim Carrey's origins. A Canadian legend, Jim Carrey is considered one of the greatest modern comedians of all time. He famously released 3 films in the year 1995, Dumb and Dumber, The Mask, and Ace Ventura, all of which made millions at the box office and still hold up to this day, except for a couple scenes in Ace Ventura, but we won't get into that. As many know, comedians tend to have a pretty rough backstory, as the best comedy comes from a place of pain. Over the years, Jim has come clean about his strange but fun upbringing. His family struggled financially, and he grew up watching his mother struggle with depression, which he claims to have been passed down to him. Despite his energy, he was a bit of a recluse growing up, and apparently he spent hours in his room making faces in the mirror instead of hanging out with his friends. After dropping out of high school to work a full-time job, Jim and his family were actually forced to live in a Volkswagen van together, becoming homeless for a short period of time. He went on to attempt a career in comedy, at first to minimal success, but of course he was able to find his footing and made his place in comedy history. Number 8. There are ties to the mafia. The film industry may be a multi-billion-dollar business, but where did they get that first bit of cash from to get where they are today? Well, apparently Hollywood has a dark history that's tied to organized crime families. The Trucadero, or the Truck, was a famous spot on the Sunset Strip back in the day, with many celebrities coming through the doors, along with studio heads and notorious mob leaders like Mickey Cohen, who was a regular at the establishment. He was a man who rubbed elbows with many of Hollywood's A-list. In fact, the film Texas Chainsaw Massacre, released in the 1970s, was released by Bryanston Pictures, a company heavily linked to several crime families. While the production studio ended up going bankrupt, Hollywood is still filled with many people doing secret deals. I bet all of the money in my savings account that they had something to do with this Barbenheimer nonsense. Now that's not a lot of money, but the mob runs the memes. Confirmed. Number 7. Woody Harrelson's father. Woody is best known in Hollywood as the wildest wild child ever to exist. He eats raw meat, he's an eco-crusader, he's a protester against violence, and an advocate for the legalization of herbs and spices in the United States. He's loved on screen, but did you know that his father took people out for money? And I'm not talking about on dates. That's a different job. Charles Harrelson was sentenced to 2 lifetime sentences for the slaying of a federal judge in San Antonio. And prior to that charge, Charles had previously been acquitted for the slaying of Alan Berg, who was a carpet salesman. And he was convicted of the slaying of Sam DeGalia. He's not the greatest hitman of all time. His track record will prove that. The evidence shows that Charles is not the greatest hitman of all time. Woody doesn't speak much of his father these days, opting instead to leave his family's trouble in the past. He does, however, say that the one piece of advice that his father ever gave him that he still uses to this day is always keep an open mind. Charles knew all about opening minds with bullets. Number 6, they have backups of A-listers. There have been many rumors over the years that Hollywood likes to clone their best and brightest on the off chance that they'll need them again following their ultimate demise. According to the internet, Paul Rudd actually got to star alongside his clone in the show Living with Yourself. Now, Paul has of course claimed that the performance was achieved with CGI and filming one character one day and another the next, but Paul Rudd is also 54 years old and looks like that, so something is not right about this. Now, there is a theory out there that the celebrity elites are made up of lizard people who take the form of actors and singers to influence us, and Paul is thought to be one of those lizard people. Now, I don't believe this theory, I'm just sharing something cool that I found on the internet, but it would be awesome if there were 2 Paul Rudds. In fact, that would be the most chill way to find out that cloned people exist. Just Paul being like, "Hi, I'm Paul," and "Hi, I'm also Paul." Everything's gonna be fine. Number 5. Mark Wahlberg should be in jail. Maki Mak and a Funky Bunch hit the rap scene in 1991, and despite sounding like the title of a cheesy kids show, the crew had a small following and garnered a bit of success. Enough for leading man Mark Wahlberg to be spotted and picked up by Hollywood to star in The Corruptor, a 1999 action flick that sees Mark play the leading man Danny Wallace, a police officer who attempts to stop substance trafficking and corruption by the Chinese triads. He's had a successful acting career that has recently been declining in quality, but he's still acting and he looks jacked at the age of 52, so please don't hurt me, Mark. Infinite was just hard to watch. Growing up in Boston, he was the youngest of 9 children and was relentlessly bullied by his fellow siblings. His parents divorced when he was very young, and he became addicted to no-no snow by the time he was in his mid-teens. He dropped out of high school and was eventually arrested when he was just 18 for attempting to slay 2 Vietnamese men. Apparently, he was walking home late one night under the influence of a hallucinogenic narcotic when he spotted the men. Close friends at the time have confirmed that Mark had a racial biased upbringing, which caused him to be instantly aggressive towards anyone who just wasn't white. He attempted to swing a large log at them, which did make contact and knocked one of the men unconscious. He was eventually released after serving only 45 days of his 2-year prison sentence, and he vowed to change his life. Now, so far, he's kept that promise, and I can personally confirm that he's very polite and patient, because he actually watched a movie at the theater I used to work at. He does travel with a crew of 5 people at all times surrounding him. It's a bit intimidating, just a little. Number 4. Margot Robbie may be crazy. Margot may be a perfect Barbie on screen, but apparently behind the scenes, she might be a psychopath. In a recent interview with BBC Radio 1, Margot reminisced about a little prank that she pulled on an old babysitter that involved kitchen cutters, which is the word I'm forced to use for the thing that you cut tomatoes with. Apparently, Margot had just gotten a new babysitter, a much older woman that just apparently wasn't as cool as Talia. So she hatched a plan of sweet, sweet revenge. After a particularly trying day where Margot refused to take a bath, she decided to kick the old lady out for good. She grabbed ketchup, her stabby jabby things, and laid face down on the kitchen tiles. You know, the old "I've been stabbed" routine. As you may expect, her babysitter walked in, took one look, screamed, and just ran out the door. Traumatized, the woman quit and Margot successfully got her old babysitter back. But that is messed up. That is so messed. And Margot was like young when she did this. Like, it's a very dark place for someone's mind to go so early on in their life. Has she secretly been a little bit crazy this whole time? It might explain why she was so good as Harley Quinn. Number 3. Tim Allen's hobbies. Tim Allen is the voice of Buzz Lightyear and the star of ABC's popular sitcom Home Improvement, which premiered in 1991. While he may have played a family man on TV, many fans may not know that Tim was a smuggler of no-no snow in the early 1970s. According to Tim, he got mixed up with some bad people back in the day while he was selling certain substances on the street for a few bucks. In 1978, Tim was arrested in Kalamazoo Battle Creek International Airport, what a name, and was caught with more than 650 grams, 1.4 pounds of no-no snow. Unfortunately for Tim, state legislators had just passed a law that tied a life sentence to any conviction of selling 650 grams or more. Like, as he was being arrested, there was a guy in a car with him like, "And if you have 650 grams, you're a goner." However, that sentence was never served, as it was revealed that Tim was set up by an undercover police officer who had been following him for months. Due to this and Tim's cooperation in providing the names of fellow dealers to the authorities, it led to him receiving a lighter conviction that allowed him to be sentenced in a federal court instead of a state, so being able to ignore that new policy entirely. His information led to 20 arrests and the sentencing of a major dealer. Can that be a movie, please? Number 2. CGI'd before they pass. Unfortunately, computers are not only making everyone's lives easier when it comes to looking cool on screen, but they're also being used in some of the creepiest ways ever. So, the first example of someone being CGI'd into a movie following their passing was Carrie Fisher. And I do mean first to have a speaking line and be a significant character. Rise of Skywalker did not heavily feature her, but the fact that they had that ready to go so fast after she passed, it was super unnerving. They They pulled this with Stan Lee too in one of his last on-screen cameos, and Marvel was going to do this with Chadwick Boseman in the sequel to Black Panther, but the studio changed their minds last minute, and thank the good Lord. But not only is Hollywood prepared to CGI their people into movies, they seem to have inside knowledge of when it's gonna happen. With the new addition of AI into the world of film, we're close to Hollywood not even needing actors anymore and just asking the computer to make Tom Cruise do stunts. Deepfake technology is also getting better and better, making it extremely difficult to tell if a video is authentic or just some CGI shenanigans. Nope, still just me. Number 1, they're all broke. That's right, despite it being one of the most lucrative industries in the world, most of Hollywood's actors, writers, directors aren't as well off as we may think. Unless you've been living under a rock for the past month, most of Hollywood is closed right now as its staff are on strike. Some of the toppest of tier actors have joined their crew in solidarity, not stopping until Hollywood's producers and big budget studios start sharing the money that they make. Actor Sean Gunn gave an interview this last week where he mentions working on a show currently streaming on Netflix, a show that has made over $4 million in residuals, of which he's received basically nothing. This type of financial woe extends to a ton of people in Hollywood, and I just wanted to take this moment to wish luck to anyone out there on the picket lines. Hollywood, pay your people, and everyone holding a sign or waiting for the strike to end, get what you're worth and get back to making the world a better place. Number 10, The Dark Knight. Heath Ledger was making moves as a romantic comedy and drama actor, starring in movies like 10 Things I Hate About You and Brokeback Mountain. But it was his turn as the clown prince of darkness, the Joker, in Christopher Nolan's 2008 Batman The Dark Knight that changed his life. He delivered what is considered to be the greatest performance of not only his career, but as the Joker. Still being brought up whenever the debate of who is the best comes to light. Heath was incredible, but Jack Nicholson will always be my Joker. Unfortunately, only a few months before the film released in theaters, Ledger suffered a fatal substance overdose and passed away. In the years that followed, many speculations began circulating that the role may have had something to do with his poor mental health. While his family adamantly denies this, the proof is in the pudding. When the production began, Heath isolated himself from his fellow actors, and he kept a diary of disturbing images to enter the realm of a psychopath. Following the end of the shoot, he reportedly found it very difficult to sleep without the help of sedatives and painkillers, which were the combination that ultimately led to his overdose. It seems that playing the Joker takes a toll on any and all who don the bright green wig, so please be warned if a man from DC ever walks up to you and offers you a role, just say no and walk away. Number 9, Ray. Jamie Foxx is one of the most talented men in Hollywood. This guy can sing, he can act, he can dance, and he can write. He does it all. Jamie's career has been filled with a few misses, but mainly hits, and his hits hit hard. Jamie has appeared in many big budget flicks over his career, like Collateral alongside Tom Cruise, White House Down with Channing Tatum, and he even took a step into the more serious direction when he played musician Ray Charles in the biopic about his life called Ray. Jamie played the blind piano player for roughly 3 months of shooting, but to better portray the character and to get into the proper mindset, Jamie had the production team literally glue his eyes shut while filming. This was a bit of an extreme reaction, and Jamie suffered dearly for it. Not only could he not see anything while he was on set, but he had to go to the hospital after some of the glue seeped through his eyelid and made contact with his eyeball. Thankfully, he suffered no permanent damage from the role, and he did receive the Oscar for Best Actor that year, so I don't know, I guess the pain and discomfort was well worth it. Number 8, The Blind Side. The Blind Side was a 2009 biopic about the true story of NFL star Michael Oher. In the film, he is a homeless young man who is adopted by a wealthy family and eventually makes his way to college and the NFL. Unfortunately, it was recently revealed that that was mostly just BS. Recently, the subject of the film, Michael Oher, shared allegations against the Tuohy family, claiming that they had tricked him into signing himself into a conservatorship and not adoption papers like he was led to believe. According to new information released by the studio and Michael himself, the Tuohys negotiated a deal with 20th Century Fox that left Oher without any payment for the rights to his name, likeness, or life story, while the Tuohy family received a contract price of $225,000 and 2.5% of the film's net proceeds. That film has since grossed about $300 million, but according to Michael, he hasn't seen a penny. Wait, those aren't things thing anymore. Okay. He hasn't seen a nickel. No, it's not as good. The paperwork made it so that the family would be in complete control of his contracts when it came time to sign up for football, with Papa Toohey being the main culprit of the scam. The Tooheys came forward and claimed that Michael is lying and that they actually have records to prove that they never made any money off the movie. But they did not deny tricking him into signing fake adoption papers, so I'm gonna go with Michael on that one. Number 7. Poltergeist, 1981. Poltergeist brought together two legends of the 20th century cinema with very different sensibilities. We had the director Tobe Hooper, best known for the original Texas Chainsaw Massacre movies. Hooper's work was gritty, dark, and pretty much just something of a downer. Coming from a much more family-friendly sensibility, we had co-writer and producer Steven Spielberg. Spielberg's movies were high budget and kid-inclusive, so if you put them together, you get Poltergeist, a gritty horror movie with an Amblin sheen and soundtrack heavily featuring child actors. One major thing that this movie had going for it was its use of practical effects, creating some truly uncomfortable and creepy scenes. Like, don't even get me started on that clown. But one dark fact behind the picture was the use of real-life skeletons for one of the last few scenes in the movie. Without telling the actors, Steven and the crew ventured off to a nearby university to acquire some authentic skeletons that were reportedly hung up in classrooms to study. Poltergeist was plagued with a number of supernatural issues like set pieces falling on their own, equipment malfunctioning, and the darkest fact of all, several of the cast and crew involved with this movie passed away shortly after filming. Almost a Final Destination type situation. I'm not sure what Steven was expecting though. How are you gonna bring in real life human remains on a set and think that everything's gonna be fine? Number 6. The Wizard of Oz. This classic story is one of the most loved movies of all time, first premiering in 1939 and still being viewed by many people to this day. However, despite its success, many view the film as being a little bit cursed. There were so many serious accidents on set of the film, from the two actors playing the witch's winged monkeys crashing to the ground when their wires broke midair, to the Wicked Witch's stunt double being severely burned by a stunt gone wrong. According to a writer for the New York Times, many of the special effects being done for this movie had never actually been done before. For instance, the makeup and prosthetics used on Buddy Ebsen, aka the original Tin Man, essentially poisoned him as the makeup was made of pure aluminum dust. After 9 straight days of shooting, he was taken to the hospital and made to sit in an oxygen tent. When he wasn't getting any better anytime soon, they decided to recast him and hired Jack Haley to finish the shoot. This time, instead of applying aluminum powder directly to his skin though, they mixed it in with a paste and painted it on his body. Wait, they could have just done that the whole time? Number 5. Now You See Me. Now You See Me was a little action movie about an FBI agent played by Mark Ruffalo chasing a team of magicians who pull off elaborate bank heists during their performances. Fun movie, good premise, eh. During one scene in particular, actor Isla Fisher was placed in a glass tank and chained up for an escape act. The stunt team set her up with a magnetic release so that the metal chains that were around her body wouldn't tangle. Oh, but boy did they! The chains wrapped themselves around Isla in a way that actually prevented that mechanism from working. The team had placed a kill switch in the tank that could drain it in 70 seconds, however, as a result of being tangled, she couldn't reach the switch. While the crew did eventually catch on that she was in real trouble, it wasn't before the cameras rolled and captured her genuine terror. The clip taken during this incident was actually left in the final product of the movie, so when she's banging on the glass and begging to be set free, that's not acting! Those are true, genuine screams of fear. The stunt gone wrong, coupled with the poor reception of the film, actually caused her to step back from the sequel, instead being rewritten and recasted as Lizzie Kaplan. Number 4. The Exorcist. Even though people are scared by different elements in horror, everyone can agree that The Exorcist is one of the scariest movies ever made. The Exorcist focuses on a girl named Regan McNeil who is possessed by a demon, and whose only hope is in the hands of an exorcist and a priest. Now, for some reason, this movie was released on December 26th in 1973, so nobody was very jolly when they saw this one. This movie had a strange superpower when it was released. It actually had the ability to make its viewers literally vomit, to the point where theaters were handing out barf bags to anybody stopping by. The most horrifying part of this flick though was not the film itself, but rather the behind the scenes shenanigans that were taking place. Two cast members, Jack McGowan and Vasiliki Malraux, both passed away after filming commenced, which was pretty strange as their characters in the film also pass away. The film was also plagued by non-supernatural villains like its director William Friedkin, who would literally swat actors and fire his personal pew-pew device in the air to get them riled up for scenes. While the film is still considered to be one of the most terrifying movies of all time, sounds like the experience on set was like 10 times worse. Number 3. The Master of Disguise. This next entry involves a brief mention of the events of New York in September 11th in 2001, so if that is a very sensitive topic, please skip to the next entry, no harm done. The Master of Disguise was supposed to be the first of many solo flicks starring SNL alumni and comedy legend Dana Carvey. He played Pistachio Disguisey, a man who discovers he comes from a great long line of super spies capable of pulling off elaborate disguises to take down their targets. It is a straight up weird movie that I loved as a kid, but as I get older it just gets cheesier and cheesier, not in a good way. Unfortunately for the cast and crew, they were filming one particularly ridiculous scene while a real world tragedy was taking place. The infamous turtle scene, where Dana feels that he may not be turtly enough to be in the Turtle Club, was being filmed on September 11th, 2001, on the same day that the Twin Towers fell in New York. In the middle of filming a take, the cast was informed of the tragedy and they took a moment of silence. Unfortunately for Dana, he had to spend that moment of silence in full prosthetics. When recounting the story now, he seems to take a lighter approach and he laughs it off, but at the time it was a very dark and very uncomfortable moment for the entire crew. Number 2, Singing in the Rain. I'm singing in the rain, I'm singing in the rain. Ow, my foot hurts! That's exactly what happened to Debbie Reynolds in 1952's Singing in the Rain. For those who may not have seen this film, the story followed a silent film star falling for a chorus girl just as he and his delusional, jealous screen partner are trying to make the difficult transition to talking pictures in the 1920s. That's right, movies used to be in black and white and nobody talked. When you did it, it was some weird magical thing called a talkie. Fun movie fact for you. For the shoot, Debbie Reynolds was made to film a song and dance sequence that left her in need of a new pair of shoes and a doctor. For the Good Morning dance number of the film, Reynolds and her co-star Gene Kelly were made to jump over a couch at the same time, which was a take that apparently took 40 tries to master. You know how shoes are super comfy these days? Well, in the 1950s, not so much. At the end of the long day, Reynolds had literal pools of red life juice in her shoes. Life juice is the stuff that comes out of you when you're impaled. Despite being a fun dance sequence, the reality is that Debbie is silently suffering through the entire thing. And at number 1, The Shining. In 1980, Stanley Kubrick adapted and directed a film version of Stephen King's famous horror novel, The Shining. The film itself was very well received by most people except for Stephen King. Everyone attributes their joy to the raw performances given from Shelley Duvall and Jack Nicholson. Jack played the unhinged groundkeeper, sent mad by his isolation and the spirits that lurk within the walls of the Overlook Hotel, with Shelley acting as his wife. The performances come from a very dark place, however. The director decided that the best way to get Shelley to deliver a top-tier performance was to make her life on set just a living hell. Her time on the shoot was spent being berated by Stanley, who actually told the crew to ignore her cries of frustration and to disengage emotionally, and she was made to refilm scenes over and over again, to the point where the film actually holds the Guinness World Record for the most recorded takes of one scene. They took an astonishing 127 takes of the infamous staircase scene. Following the end of the shoot, Shelley decided to stop acting altogether and focus on maintaining a healthy personal life. Thankfully, it seems that she has done just that, as she is set to make her return to the acting world in a new horror flick called The Forest Hills, without Stanley Kubrick behind the camera. Number 10. She's into her own feet. The Barbie movie was filled with colorful set pieces, stellar performances, and some incredible footwork from Miss Margot Robbie. The internet made it known to the world that Margot opted to use her real feet for the Barbie movie, when initially her heels were supposed to be CGI'd to stay perfect. Instead, Margot just did what she always does and shows us her natural talents, but she may be more into her own feet than we realize. In an interview with the Today Show in Australia, Margot was asked how she felt about the internet losing their minds over her feet. Apparently, she discovered one day that there is a section of the internet specifically dedicated to Margot and her little piggies. But it turns out that she was flattered rather than being mortified, and she said that she thinks it's lovely that people care so much about her feet, and just left it at that. The reason many believe that she is obsessed with her own feet is because she has opted to show them several times over the years. In the film Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, there's literally like 6 or 7 solid minutes of the movie just dedicated to Margot's feet. And might I add, they are not clean at all, like somebody wash them please. Her having no problem with this isn't crazy. She may just be accepting the situation and playing along, but she may also have a file on her desktop labeled Feet Finder for Me. Who knows? She's actually American. As some may or may not know, Margot is a native to a little part of the world called Australia. She rarely gets to use her accent in films, however, normally being casted as an American character, which may not be for nothing. According to several on-set accounts, Margot tends to stay in her character's accent while filming a movie. Not necessarily method acting, but she keeps up the voice to help maintain some air of realism. Or is she simply forgetting to adopt her natural accent? Several celebrities who have come to the US from other countries have pretended to be a native to the US just to help them get roles. Idris Elba may have never gotten work if he hadn't pretended to be from New York when he first got to the States. There is a huge theory out there that pegs Margot as a red life juice filled American, but she pretends to be from down under to make herself seem more interesting to directors. As with everything I'll say on this list, this is just a theory, but it's one of the more realistic ones. She's an incredible actress, so who knows what her real voice may be? Heck, for all we know, she could be Canadian. Hey there, you joker, how's she going there, bud? Number 8. She may be crazy. Margot may be a perfect Barbie on screen, but apparently behind the scenes, she might be a psychopath. In a recent interview with BBC Radio 1, Margot reminisced about a little prank that she pulled on an old babysitter that involved kitchen cutters, which is the word I am forced to use for knife. See, they bleeped it out. Apparently Margot had just gotten a new babysitter, a much older woman that just apparently wasn't as cool as Talia. So she hatched a plan of sweet, sweet revenge. After one particular trying day where Margot refused to take a bath, she decided to kick the old lady out for good. She grabbed some ketchup, some stabby jabby things, and laid face down on the kitchen tiles. You know, the old I've been jabbed routine. As you may expect, her babysitter walked in, took one look, screamed, and ran out the door. She traumatized that woman, who quit, and Margot successfully got her old sitter back. But that is so messed up, and Margot was like young when she did that. That is such a dark place for someone's mind to go so early on. Has she secretly been just a little bit crazy this whole time? It might explain why she's so incredible as Harley Quinn. Number 7. She's not always acting. Method actors are people who dive deep into their roles to truly embody the character that they are given. Jared Leto is someone who takes that way too far, but it turns out that Margot may also be one of those people that takes things to the extreme. During several scenes in films over the years, Margot has been known to get a little bit steamy with her co-stars. And in one instance, she literally had the director of a film change the script to include Margot kissing her co-star Brad Pitt, because it was just something she wanted to cross off her list. Something that she also attempted to do with Ryan Gosling during the filming of the Barbie movie, but never happened on camera. There have been stories over the years that, especially in her earlier days of acting, that she wouldn't always act. For some of these steamy scenes, some people reported that they were actually, physically doing the deed. Margot has adamantly denied these claims over the years, but she does it with this little smirk on her face like, what, meep? I would never. She can deny these claims all she wants, but I saw Wolf of Wall Street, and that was definitely 11 seconds of passion on Leonardo DiCaprio's part. Number 6. She's addicted to no-no snow. Margot has delivered consistently stellar performances over the years, whether it's alongside other actors in Oscar-nominated picks or starring solo in serious biopics like I, Tonya. It may come as no shock then that the one theory being thrown around, again this is not my theory, is that her performances tend to come from an enhanced sense of self. You see? Margot has these big beautiful eyes that just take over the screen when they pop up, and those eyes are usually focused and observant, while she herself can be a little bit squirrely and excitable on camera, conditions similar to those who suffer from no-no snow consumption. This theory comes from several on-set rumors from former personal assistants on film set. Of all the theories that I'm going to talk about on this list, that's probably it. This is the most improbable. Number 5. She's an alien. Okay, again, before I start this, not my theory, okay? This is just one of many. This definitely needed to be mentioned on the list though because it's weird. Margot Robbie first broke into the acting world starring in an Australian low-budget independent movie called I See You. Since then, she's maintained a stellar career that's been only filled with good movies and even better performances. Except for the live-action Tarzan movie, we don't talk about that. One theory of why she has been so perfect in her performances is because she's actually on a higher level of intelligence and species than we are. Margot is gorgeous, talented, and genuinely a good person from the stories that have been shared by fellow cast over the years. But the general sentence that people tend to blurt out is, "I can't believe she's real!" Not only is she all that in a bag of potato chips, but she was able to hold her breath underwater for 5 minutes while filming scenes in The Suicide Squad and Birds of Prey, only learning how to do it a few days earlier. So either she's a quick learner or she has alien lungs. Number 4, she dyes her hair. A main staple of Margot's beauty is much more than her Barbie-like feet. Her natural blonde hair has been on display in several flicks over the years, with her only rarely sporting another color or style. And there may be a good reason for that. You see, one prevalent theory being tossed around the internet is that Margot dyes her hair blonde to maintain a Barbie-like appearance. Whenever she is seen with a different color or style, like her role in the movie Amsterdam, it's just a little jarring, but that's because we have become so accustomed to seeing her with that bleach blonde hair and that perfect tan. Sorry, I just had Nickelback flashbacks there. As many people know, you can't just wake up looking that good, right? The rumor may be one of jealousy from people who just can't get that Margot Robbie look that they keep attempting, but I swear, if you zoom in on the top of her head, there's just a little bit of brown. I don't know. Nope, that's just chocolate on the lens. Number 3, her real name is not Margot Robbie. That's right, one of the many rumors circulating the internet is that Margot has adopted a fake name to help gain her work. If you Google her name on Wikipedia, it tells you that it's legit, but that's just the internet. This is a lawless wasteland where the possibilities are endless. The main reason many people seem to think that this is true, and I want to point out again, I don't think any of this, I'm just repeating what I've read. The reasoning is the suspicion surrounding the first letter of her name and that of her 3 siblings. You see, if you combine the first letter of the names Margot, Cameron, Anya, and Lachlan, it spells the word calm, which was either a plan on the parents' part or was a decision made by Margot as she was getting famous. Her middle initial is Elise, according to the internet, but what if that was originally her first name? The only anagram that would work with that is Lace, which sounds a little bit too risque for a career in Hollywood. Number 2, she's a frickin' genius. Alright, I want to start by saying this one isn't a dark theory, I just don't like talking trash about good people, and if you made it this far, hopefully you don't want me to do that either. Instead, let's talk about the theory that Margot Robbie may be one of the smartest people in Hollywood with many hidden talents. The first example of her possible genius is a video that recently surfaced on Twitter of Margot interacting with a fan at the premiere of Amsterdam. Margot puts down her pen and paper and she begins signing to a deaf fan in the crowd, having a full conversation and smiling the entire time. Fans have been quick to point out the accuracy of her movements and have asked why she would know this in the first place. Well, it turns out that she knows quite a few things. She has a background in amateur tattooing, she's been known to be quite the heavy metal enthusiast, and she had a full timeline and money plan set in place to get her parents to take a mortgage out on their home when she was still in her teens. That's right, their daughter just walked up with a presentation so good that they were like, "Please take my money, go be famous." This woman may very well be the smartest one in Hollywood, but we will have to see if she has any other hidden abilities. Maybe she can fly! No, Nate, people can't fly. They can't fly. Number 1, she's the leader of the celebrity Illuminati. The Illuminati, an organization that tends to make everyone who hears it go, what? Because it's just such a wild theory. According to a solid portion of the world, there is a theory going around that for centuries now there has been a hidden society of elites who control the world's leaders and their decisions. A part of this theory is that several celebrities over the years have been replaced with alien replicants or lizard people to take their place. Now, you know, kinda like the plot to that new Mike Myers show, only instead of Mike being dressed up as 6 different people, it's Justin Bieber, Brad Pitt, Rihanna, and so many more. One person who was recently added to the possible list of Illuminatians was Margot Robbie. Over the past few years, her career has been going very well, and she's received work with some of Hollywood's top performers. Performers who also are on the Illuminati list, like Leonardo DiCaprio and Christian Bale. The main theory is that due to her success and popularity, that she has taken over as the new queen of the elite, controlling Hollywood from her iron throne. Did she have a part to play in the success of the Barbie movie? Probably, because she's good at her job. I just want to remind everyone, I didn't come up with that theory. In my personal opinion, Elton John should be in charge of the Illuminati.
Number 10 is Joe Jonas. Jonas Brothers Joe Jonas spoke with Wonderland magazine in May 2019 about the struggles of being a Disney Channel star alongside his brothers. Joe made it clear how Disney was a saving grace for the trio when he said, quote, "When we were getting things started, we were in a position at one point where we were without a label and we didn't really know what the next steps were going to be. And Disney reached out with a huge opportunity for us to be signed by them and work on a TV show. This was kind of a saving grace for us in that point of our career, and we jumped on that opportunity. But still, Joe went on to say, quote, as you get older and you're a young adult and you're still on the Disney Channel, that can feel a little uncomfortable. Creatively, you can feel like you're a little boxed in and you can't really expand and grow. Lyrically, what you're going through in that time in your life, you have to protect your audience by only writing what Disney would approve. It was a little bit tricky as we got older, that's for sure. But that's just the music. While chatting with Vulture way back in 2013, Joe called out the Disney Channel for its apparently terrible writing and strict rules for their film projects. He said, quote, it just ended up being some weird slapstick humor that only a 10-year-old would laugh at. They took out the kissing scene that Nick had. I had to shave every day because they wanted me to pretend like I was 16 when I was 20. When the show was done, I cut my hair off and grew as much of a beard as I could. We went along with it at the time because we thought Disney was our only real shot, and we were terrified that it could all be taken away from us at any moment. Now that is the truth of the matter. Disney child stars are all terrified of having Disney pull the rug out from under them, but that'll become more obvious as we continue on. At number 9 today is Miley Cyrus. Miley Cyrus was probably one of the most popular of the Disney stars with Hannah Montana, where she played a dual life. While the popularity of her show is a huge reason for her popularity now, that doesn't mean it's all peaches and cream. Speaking with Marie Claire back in 2015, the actress and singer explained how being Hannah Montana impacted her mental health, saying, quote, I was told for so long what a girl is supposed to be from being on Hannah Montana. I was made to look like someone that I wasn't, which probably caused some body dysmorphia because I had been made pretty every day for so long, and then when I wasn't on that show, I was like, who the F am I? That really spells out the effects of being a child star. In a February 2019 interview on the RuPaul What's the Tea podcast, Miley elaborated on her disillusion with herself when she said, quote, I didn't really get to be a kid very much because I worked so much, but I wanted that. Since the last record, my last record was called Younger Now, and it says, even though it's not who I am, I'm not afraid of who I used to be. That was my epiphany. Number 8, Dylan Sprouse. If you weren't aware, Cole and Dylan Sprouse were two Disney Channel heavyweights with The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody and The Sweet Life on Deck. But instead of the network pulling the rug out from under them, it was actually the twins that turned their back on Disney. For some pretty understandable reasons too. Dylan Sprouse revealed the real reason why he and his twin brother, Cole Sprouse, left the network while speaking with Vulture in December 2017. Dylan spoke about how the pair had, quote, a really awesome idea for where the show needed to go. But when they brought that idea to the higher ups at Disney, their idea was ultimately turned down. Speaking on that in the same interview, he said, quote, we were 18. If that isn't old enough to know exactly what the show needs, then, well, I would beg to disagree. I don't think Disney were willing to work with us really ever, so we stopped the show. And honestly, that's kind of punk as hell. Stick it to the man, Dylan. Good job. Number 7, Bella Thorne. Bella Thorne may be one of the most outspoken ex-Disney stars. During a February 2021 interview with Fox News, she said, quote, there are definitely a lot of pressures in the Disney eye to be so perfect, and I think that's where Disney in a sense goes wrong, because they make their kids seem perfect. That image is very difficult. It's also never been me. I always just like to do what no one else is doing. She would go on to say, quote, little kids growing up don't need to see perfect people. Kids need to see real people. They need to see diversity. They need to see intriguing. Bella opened up about another Disney instance during a podcast interview, which is completely different, called High Low with M. Rada in December 2022. Recalling a time when, well, quote, I almost got fired off the Disney Channel because I was 14 and I wore a two-piece on the beach. According to her, there was a fan that got a photo, and when that photo went into the World Wide Web, people began to put Disney under pressure to fire the actress. She said, quote, obviously Disney didn't fire me, but also they were like, hey, we're getting a lot of heat for this. Everyone's getting a lot of heat for this because you're in a bikini on the beach. Which is when apparently they said, quote, so she needs to make sure she goes out in board shorts and a loose t-shirt next time she's at the beach. She continued on, quote, they said, you're lucky Bella has such a fan base that we can't afford to fire her at this moment in time, but if she does one more other thing, we'll fire her. But I didn't even talk about when a Disney casting director also fired Bella because they thought the 10-year-old was flirting with them. What even is that? What? Number 6. Stephanie Scott. While she had released music and acted a little bit before her time at Disney, Stephanie Scott played the role of Lexi Reed on Disney Channel's Ant Farm from 2011 to 2014, which won her a second Young Artist Award and introduced her to a wider audience. While on Disney, she also recorded a bunch of Disney Channel promotional singles, which were released between 2008 and 2012. However, despite her success and time with Disney, in a 2015 interview with BuzzFeed, the actress threw some major shade at the network. She claimed that her role as Lexi Reed forced her to, quote, sugarcoat everything all the time. She said, quote, that's one of the hardest things, not being able to express myself in a certain way or being stuck having to promote something or say something I don't believe in. It's kind of hard after a while when you are feeling things and having a rough time in your personal life and you can't express your emotions through your work, which heavily echoes the feelings of the other stars on this list. Stephanie explained, quote, I wanted to tell stories of troubled girls where everything isn't perfect all the time. I didn't want it to stop there and be labeled as a Disney girl. I quickly realized I wanted to do more. If you've been on a Disney show, people target you as being the sitcom funny girl who can't take herself seriously and doesn't really have true emotions because they have to be perfect and pure, not shattered and torn in any way. Number 5. Demi Lovato. Demi Lovato opened up about her time on the network to Harper's Bazaar in March 2020 and admitted that they had a hard time with the Disney workload, which, as a kid, was likely way more than normal. They covered themselves at first by saying, quote, I'm grateful for the opportunities that I got, but despite that, they also said, quote, do I wish that I'd had more downtime? Yes. I think when you are a teenager and you're given your big break, you'll do anything to make it happen. I do feel that a lot of the way some of my life was handled and lived led me to kind of having a bit of a downfall just because I was so overworked and I wasn't dedicating enough time to my mental health or my personal life. Now, while she didn't so much speak about the restrictiveness of the network like the other stars have, she spoke more about the effect of imposing a celebrity lifestyle onto a growing human being, and in a separate interview with Billboard from 2016, Demi joked that they had PTSD after leaving the channel. They added, quote, we joked around that it was Disney high, except we were all shooting shows and really overworking ourselves. Number 4. Selena Gomez. Just like a lot of other Disney stars, Selena Gomez, who got her Disney fame from being the main character of Disney Channel's Wizards of Waverly Place, felt that her time at Disney started to paint her as someone who she wasn't, like almost everyone else on this list. When speaking with the New York Times in 2015 about moving away from that image, she said, quote, I'm growing and changing. I was in a relationship and I was being managed by my parents and I was still under Hollywood and Disney. And I was being held to this expectation of being the good girl. She continued, I knew deep down that this wasn't what I wanted to do. Being exhausted, forcing something that wasn't right, even in my personal life, I had to have moments where I was crying and I was like, why am I not in love with what I do? I was forced to get very uncomfortable for a while in order to make the decisions I made. Now, while that seems pretty much par for the course here, quite some time later during the Television Critics Association press panel in August 2021, she elaborated on what I personally think is the main issue with becoming a Disney child star. She said, quote, I signed my life away to Disney at a very young age and I didn't know what I was doing because, you know, she was a kid. Number 3. Coco Jones. Coco Jones starred in the Disney Channel original movie Let It Shine, which is where she found her primary Disney Channel successes. But she also had recurring roles on 2 Disney series, So Random and Good Luck Charlie, competed in Radio Disney's The Next Big Thing singing competition, and signed with Hollywood Records music label, which is owned by Disney. But then, kind of as soon as it all started, it began to unwind. In a 2020 YouTube live stream, she revealed that a Let It Shine sequel was planned, but that it was canceled for reasons completely unknown to her. She was also apparently supposed to get her own show, which also never came to be. Hollywood Records, though, seemed to be the main cause for concern here. They dictated what the celeb could wear, say, and sing, and the people that the network supplied her to work with wanted her to sound, quote, sellable, which is a term that is up to interpretation by you guys. She put out a few singles and an EP, but right before her actual album was supposed to drop with the record label, the label dropped her. And apparently they told Coco, quote, "We don't know what to do with you." At that point in her life, she was homeschooled after dropping out to make Disney and her career her priority. Afterwards, she understandably dealt with depression, but with the support of her parents, she graduated high school early and moved to LA. Going forward, she booked the role of Hilary Banks on Bel Air, signed a new record deal with High Standards and Def Jam Recordings, and dropped her major label debut single, Caliber. So good job. Number 2, Ashley Tisdale. Another heavyweight Disney star, Ashley Tisdale played Sharpay Evans in Disney's High School Musical trilogy and in her own spin-off, Sharpay's Fabulous Adventure. She also played major roles in The Suite Life of Zack and Cody and Phineas and Ferb. Now, after the first High School Musical movie, which, if you don't know, was huge, Ashley joined her castmates for High School Musical: The Concert. While on the tour, which itself must have been both a dream come true and a nightmare with all the scheduling and little downtime, she also performed her own original song, He Said, She Said. However, similar to the experience that Jonas Brothers had, Disney made her change certain lyrics. In a TikTok, Ashley said that Disney made her change the line "kissing like that" to "dancing like that" for the tour. The original lyrics were "Baby, I can see us moving like that. Baby, I can see us touching like that. Baby, I can see us kissing like that. We don't need no more he said, she said." But while I get the image that Disney is trying to uphold here, I don't believe changing an artist's original work is fair. Just take the song out in its entirety. That would have been my idea. I think that would still not be okay. So just like, I don't know, leave it alone. And finally, in at number 1, Alison Stoner. You may recognize Alison Stoner for her supporting roles in actually quite a few Disney Channel productions, like The Suite Life of Zack and Cody, Camp Rock 2, The Final Jam, and Phineas and Ferb. I remember them best from Cheaper by the Dozen, but that's just me. They have been one of those few Disney Channel veterans that has actually tried to make things better for other stars going forward, and they've been pretty vocal about some of Disney's shenanigans. In a 2021 YouTube interview, Alison said, "While traversing extreme peaks and valleys of global fame, hidden medical hospitalizations, artistic milestones, rapid adultification, and multi-layered mistreatment I wish on no one, I narrowly survived the toddler to train wreck pipeline." That's a hell of a way to describe surviving Disney. They went on to say, "As someone who lived it and witnessed thousands endure alongside me, I can attest that what is missing from the pipeline narrative are clear action plans for intervention, long-term prevention, and accountability from studios, agencies, and guardians." Unlike other stars, Alison turned their experience into ideas to improve the safety and well-being of other children in entertainment, such as requiring studios to have a mental health professional on set, improving child labor laws, and making media and industry literacy courses mandatory for guardians and representatives. One of my favorite quotes from the celeb, though, goes like this, quote, "If we disrupt and heal the toddler to train wreck pipeline, we won't need another cautionary memoir." And that's actually helpful.
Number 10, Borat. Alright, now some of the entries on this list are banned for silly reasons like female empowerment, but this one was banned for a pretty fair reason. Sacha Baron Cohen played the titular Borat, a news anchor from the small country of Kazakhstan who travels to America to report on the greatest country in the world. Now, this is a cult classic, and while it may not have aged the greatest, there is still some charm to the character. Enough for Amazon to greenlight a sequel in 2021. This movie is fun, but certainly has its problems. For starters, the character is from a real country, a country which, following the film's release, shared a petition demanding the film be pulled from theaters. Reason being, well, is problem number 2. Borat is racist, misogynistic, and overall just the strangest man on the planet. The country felt that he was being pegged as a representation of what the country was. Now, if you've seen Borat, you know that this man makes some pretty wild comments about everything. Things that I wish we could talk about on the internet, but gosh darn it, can't do that. One more thing. The filmmakers decided to use a real Romanian village as the town for the film, so when they were filming in a small, peaceful village, it was filled with people who were led to believe that they were shooting a legitimate documentary, but instead they were made to look like backwards criminals. While the film was banned at first, by 2012 the country actually shifted its views to being thankful, as the film was very successful at the box office and now people wanted to see what the real Kazakhstan is like. The tourism industry skyrocketed and they were grateful for his antics, so I guess if you wear a singlet and go to a weird country that they'll be like stoked about it. Number 9, Wonder Woman. Wonder Woman was the first solo flick featuring Gal Gadot as the whip-wielding Amazonian, released in 2017. The film was actually well received, which was surprising considering the rough quality of the movies that are being pumped out by DC. However, anyone living in Lebanon was unfortunately unable to see this movie due to the origins of Gal's background. She is Israeli. The two countries have been in a massive, let's call it combat for a long time now. And when it was revealed that not only was she from the opposing country, but that she also worked as a combat trainer in the Israeli Defense Force for 2 years. It was revealed that not only was she from the opposing country, but she also worked as a combat trainer in the Israeli Defense Force for 2 years. The film was actually publicized and scheduled for release in Lebanon until hours before the premiere. Despite the cancellation from Lebanon, the film went on to be a critical hit, spawning a sequel and what I'm sure is going to be 20 other movies with Wonder Woman just kinda jammed into the plot. Number 8. Lightyear. Lightyear was the Toy Story origin movie that we never asked for, but we're very happy that we got. This film follows Chris Evans as the beloved Toy Story character Buzz Lightyear. According to the film, the toy that Andy has is actually based on a movie. Lightyear is that movie. The film was well received by those who were able to watch it, but unfortunately 14 countries had banned the Pixar movie due to it containing a scene in which 2 women kiss. It is barely a 3-second clip, but thanks to a large portion of the world still being very, very silly, this is just too much for people to bear. Oh no, 2 women dating! Lightyear was banned from theaters in several Middle Eastern and Asian countries. Thankfully, the rest of the world is just a little bit more open to the concept of people being, themselves and accepted the movie. So everyone else got to enjoy this little Pixar prequel while those 14 countries just think Buzz is some toy. Hey man, he's a space commander! Hey, in case you're unaware, we support the LGBTQ+ community here at BTS, so if you don't and that entry upset you, you can leave now. Take care. Bye-bye then. Number 7. Barbie. Barbie may have won the Barbenheimer box office race, but it's not because of Vietnam. Barbie is the highest grossing film not of just this year, but it is said to be the highest grossing comedy of all time. And this is mainly due in part to social media spewing out every meme possible. The Barbenheimer race, named after the Barbie movie and its release day competitor Oppenheimer, has allowed both films to reach a wide audience and share what is being reviewed as a wonderful and fun movie with some very positive messages about female empowerment. Apparently that doesn't sit well with the folks over in Vietnam though. The country decided to ban the Barbie flick due to a scene highlighting a map depicting China's unilateral claim of territory in the south of China. On top of being banned in Vietnam though, the film will also be forgotten about in the United Arab Emirates. According to the country's officials, the Barbie movie contains scenes that violate the country's social, cultural, and religious values, meaning that it would need to be heavily censored in order to be released. Many fans have commented that of all the movies banned across the globe, that this one has no reason to be. There's no LGBTQ+ characters, there's no swearing, nobody is in their birthday suits, there's nothing. The entire film's theme is women can do anything they want, and I guess that's just a little bit too much for some people to handle. Number 6. The Interview. This hidden comedy gem comes from the incredible mind of Seth Rogen and his longtime collaborator turned nemesis, James Franco. The film stars James as Dave Skylark, a talk show host, and Seth as his producer. When they land an interview with the supreme leader of North Korea, who it turns out is a fan of the show, they are recruited by the CIA to take him out. Can you guess where this one's banned? Yeah, it turns out that the supreme leader of North Korea didn't appreciate a bunch of Americans making a movie in which his character, spoiler alert, literally blows up in a helicopter and is incinerated in slow motion. The North Korean government actually hacked into Sony servers to gain access to an early copy of the movie, which originally featured an even more graphic end sequence. The government made it known that they were not only aware of the movie, but it considered it a sign of aggression towards the country. This forced James and Seth to go into hiding and be surrounded by armed guards 24/7. The government had a ton of information not just on the film but on Sony's personal employees. The film was supposed to be released in theaters, but it was put on the shelf until it was approved by the supreme leader for release. While they were eventually able to create a version of the movie that was acceptable, the film was still banned across North Korea for many, many reasons. The film actually ended up premiering on the Google Play Store nearly 4 months before the US government were able to approve it for limited release in theaters. The movie had received so much buzz online that it actually made more money before it even went to theaters. I personally had it on my iTunes account for a hot minute. Nowadays, The Interview is just another movie that you can find on Netflix. No hacks necessary. Number 5. Zoolander. Zoolander has one of the strangest film plots ever, yet it is somehow regarded as one of the best comedies to come out of the 2000s. The film follows Ben Stiller as Derek Zoolander, a model who is really ridiculously good looking, but he's a bit of a dud upstairs. Facing the end of his modeling career, the naive male model unwittingly becomes the pawn in a plot to take out the Prime Minister of Malaysia. Did The Interview steal the plot from Zoolander? In 2001, it was reported that Zoolander had been banned in Malaysia and Singapore after a representative of the Home Affairs Ministry Film Censorship Board, or HAMP, for short, deemed the film to be unsuitable for viewers. As expected, the plot line about taking out the leader of a country does not tend to sit well with that person, especially if that man is being taken out by Ben Stiller in glitter makeup while being mind-controlled by Will Ferrell. Seriously, Hollywood, make more movies like this again, please! And pay your people. Even though the Prime Minister of Malaysia is never actually taken out in the movie, the plotline itself was enough to upset the country's leader and have it banned. Number 4. South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. South Park dominated the adult cartoon scene after being released in 1997, so it's no surprise that the creative minds behind the project, Matt Stone and Trey Parker, were granted the chance to write and star in a film for the show called South Park Bigger, Longer, and Uncut. The film followed the main friends of the series after they watch a movie with a ton of no-no words in it. They start swearing up a storm and their parents blame Canada. Now, I know what you're thinking. Nate, you suck! Well, hear me out. This movie was not banned in Canada, it was instead banned in Iraq thanks to the outlandishly cartoon depiction of the leader of their country. Now, I'm not supposed to say his name on the internet, so instead I shall pronounce it like a Californian surfer dude. Saddam Hussein. You're welcome. While that was one major reason, the other is the fact that the film actually holds the Guinness World Record for the most swear words recorded for film. Way to go, Uncle F***ers. Number 3. The Da Vinci Code. Once in a while, a popular book series gets an adaptation. Once in a while, a popular book series gets adapted into a film, and it actually pans out. Follows Robert Langdon, a Harvard symbologist who is dragged into a dark world of mysterious secret messages and dangerous conspiracies dating back centuries. Now, when the film was adapted into a thriller mystery movie, fans were beyond excited to see Tom Hanks bring Langdon to life. Unfortunately, the film featured a heavy amount of religious themes and received massive amounts of criticism upon release. Dan Brown recounts being swarmed by large crowds of Christian scholars who quizzed him on details in the Bible. The film was banned in several countries due to the sensitivity of its content, with many groups finding the picture blasphemous, and some of its content was just a bit too graphic for audiences. Oh, what? Come on, Silas just had an itch on his back, and that was the most efficient way to get it. The film was considered to be insulting to Christians, with many claiming that it went after the very soul of the Holy Gospel. It was banned in over 29 states in India, as well as several small countries like Egypt and Lebanon. Despite the outcry from religious groups and the banning across the globe, the film raked in over $750 million at the box office, and there's only one man they had to thank: the big man upstairs, the director Ron Howard, and God. Number 2. 2012. 2012, the year that we were all convinced the world was going to end. But how though? You know, would it be a massive flood? Would it be a forest fire? Maybe an alien invasion? Well, the movie 2012 set out to answer that. While some parts of the world were fearing for their lives, in 2009, Roland Emmerich decided, you know what? I'm gonna make a movie about this before I go. It featured an all-star cast, and it included some genuinely stunning disaster sequences. But 2012 was not just the year that the Mayan calendar was supposed to end. The 2012 also marked the 100th anniversary of the birth of the first great leader of North Korea, Kim Il-sung. The government did not appreciate a movie depicting such a negative event being associated with a man's birthday, so it was ultimately banned from cinemas. However, some people just really wanted to see the movie and would do whatever it took to get it. Several people were arrested by North Korean police after being caught with illegal bootleg copies. Thankfully, the film was released and the world never ended. So far as we know. Whoa! Number 1, Song of the South. Alright folks, strap in because this one's a doozy. Song of the South is a Disney movie from way back in the day. A movie that was so messed up that they actually decided not to give it a home release. The film was set on a plantation in Georgia. Red flag number 1. And it follows a young man named Johnny who thinks he's just visiting the area for a getaway with his family, but learns that he will be living here while his father is in Atlanta for work. Eventually, he meets the people around the neighborhood, including Uncle Remus, who always seems to find Johnny in times of struggle. Red flag number 2, old man hangs out with little guy. Remus tells stories to Johnny that are animated into cartoons. Unfortunately, the time in which the film is set, but it is made to feel like it's during one of the darkest times in history, and many people consider the project to be an upbeat glorification of a truly disgusting time in human history. Disney tried to cancel this project by banning it from ever receiving a home release and pulled it from theaters after only 2 weeks.